Cobra Kai has layered yet another profound connection between Johnny Lawrence and Mr. Miyagi, though this time, it's even more painful. Though it would seem that the Karate Kid spin-off would make Daniel LaRusso the new Mr. Miyagi, the series has placed his old rival Cobra Kai's Johnny firmly within the wise old sensei's archetype. From the beginning, it was Johnny who defended a nerdy teenager from bullies and helped this underdog become an All Valley champion. Several seasons later, Johnny has even more in common with Mr. Miyagi in Cobra Kai. Johnny has always been a bit rough around the edges, and his role as a bully in The Karate Kid would have seemingly disqualified him as a replacement for Mr. Miyagi. However, Cobra Kai has proven that Johnny is something of a diamond in the rough. In Season 6 Part 1, the old Cobra Kai Golden Boy officially joined up with Daniel LaRusso's Miyagi-Do, and he has been learning all about the balance between offense and defense. Johnny has come leaps and bounds, slowly closing the gap between himself and Daniel's beloved sensei to the point that Johnny's Mr. Miyagi parallels have become far more literal. Back in The Karate Kid in 1984, Mr. Miyagi told Daniel that he had tragically lost his wife and baby years before. This detail was again brought up in Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2 when Daniel realized that his sensei would have participated in the Saikai Taikai just after he had experienced such a tragic loss. Shortly after audiences of the Netflix series were reminded of this, Johnny got word that Carmen, who was pregnant with his unborn baby, had been rushed to the hospital. It was unclear whether mother or child would make it through. Thankfully, Carmen was okay and she and the baby were saved. However, the parallel between this near tragedy and what Mr. Miyagi suffered all those years before is clear. Johnny has been on a solid upward path in Cobra Kai, becoming a better father, sensei, and person in general. However, had he lost the two important figures in his life, he might have gone tumbling down a far darker path. After all, that is precisely what happened to Mr. Miyagi. Daniel LaRusso has been struggling through Cobra Kai Season 6 thanks to the knowledge that Mr. Miyagi might not have always been such a good person. It was revealed in Part 1 that Miyagi had committed an armed robbery and that his opponent in the Saikai Taikai had been killed, and all this was simply too much for Daniel to swallow. However, the fact that Mr. Miyagi lost his wife and child before this indicates that this tragedy has everything to do with the darker moments of his past, and this isn't something Daniel has managed to wrap his mind around. Still, with Daniel getting closer to Johnny, it's likely that he will begin to understand better that Mr. Miyagi's past doesn't define who the man had been. After all Johnny has gone through, he will surely empathize with Mr. Miyagi and his past. He may grow tired of Daniel's unfair judgment of Mr. Miyagi and remind him that a person's bad decisions are often a product of their experiences and don't necessarily make them a bad person. In the end, this may culminate in Johnny truly becoming the next Mr. Miyagi, and Daniel's story trajectory could feasibly see him finally accept this. The parallels between Johnny and Mr. Miyagi have been a significant part of Cobra Kai's formula from the very beginning. Johnny's role with Miguel was an ironic twist on Miyagi's and Daniel's The Karate Kid relationship, and the stark differences between these two teachers and their methods were all part of the comedy of Cobra Kai. However, as recent seasons imply that Johnny and Mr. Miyagi aren't so different after all, it's becoming all the more evident that this character will end up taking over the Miyagi-Do legacy in the end. Thanks to Mr. Miyagi's influence, Daniel has been able to stay on a clear moral path from the time he was a teenager. However, Johnny and Mr. Miyagi weren't so lucky. They both went through some terrible experiences and had to work hard to claim redemption and secure a positive morality. Daniel admitted that he wanted to walk away from karate after the Saikai Taikai, and Amanda suggested that Johnny take over Miyagi-Do in his place. If this happens, it would solidify Johnny's place in Mr. Miyagi's shoes. Of course, he would put his own spin on things in Cobra Kai, but this is a position he clearly deserves.